In this video from oorail, we are going to look at how to weather track by hand. It's a pretty simple process. You're going to need some paint. You're going to need something to mix the paint with, so we're actually going to use this dropper. You get a pack of 2 of them from Walmart for about $1.50 or so, so these should be pretty easy to find. And you also need a paintbrush. So we have a selection of paintbrushes here, but you just need a small fine paintbrush such as this one. And the other thing to do is you're going to need something to mix the paint in. What I use is I actually use these glass bottle tops. This is actually off some beer. They actually work pretty well. We can use Coke ones or some other soft drink or even a plastic bottle top off a bottle of water if you wanted. These are actually off some Irish cider, and these actually work pretty well. They're a little bit deeper, and they've got some sort of coating on here that the paint doesn't really stick to that easily, so you don't have to worry about the paint drying out. So here you can see this is the kind of brownish kind of color that we're aiming for the track. After looking at a lot of photos, the track is different colors in different locations. If you look at some TMDs or in a station by platform, especially if you're modeling the diesel era, like 70s, 80s BR, you're going to find that the track itself is actually also kind of a more black color. But we're going to go with this kind of brown color for the main parts of the layout, and we'll add some color to it. Now it doesn't actually look this brown when it's put on the track. It looks a little lighter, but it looks pretty close to a lot of the photos that we looked at. So this is the color that we're going to go with. And one of the first things you're going to want to do is do some experimenting. So we actually use three particular type of paints. I'm using these enamel paints from Humbrol. This is actually matte 113, which is a rust color. Now it's not actually a orangey rust color. It actually looks more like a kind of a light brown color, and it works pretty well. So I use about 3/4 mix of this to about a third, not even a third, probably like a quarter or so of black, and that actually produces this kind of brownish color here, but it looked a little too brown. It wasn't quite as realistic as I was looking for. It was missing that kind of tinge, so I tried to darken it up by adding some additional black to it. You can see there's a bit of a color difference between the two, and so what I decided to do is when adding the black, wasn't really getting that kind of rust tinge that you see on track, even on newer track that's well used. Just still that kind of ironish, kind of a brake dust, kind of dirt kind of color to it. And what I decided to use was this enamel paint that you can get here from here in the States from Testers, and it's actually I don't know if you can see that, it's more of a rusty color. And you don't want to use too much of this because it's a very brownish orangish kind of rust color. But if you use just a few drops of this in with the humbrol paint, you actually get this pretty decent color, which is the one I use right here. It actually looks pretty close to what you'd see on the track itself. Now if you use too much, you end up with this, and it's actually pretty decent for like maybe a disused part of the track, which I have a few sections of, but you can see there it's a little too light brown. And if you add too much black to it, this is what happens. So my first batch, after I added too much brown to it, I tried to darken it up by adding some additional black to it, but ended up going way too dark. So we got the mix down for this particular color here, so that's the one we're going to roll with. So I'm going to show you exactly how we mix this up. So what I do is I take the bottle cap, and I take a dropper. So the first thing I'm going to do before I mix in the paint is we're actually going to open this and give it a bit of a stir and a shake. So I'll pop that open like so. As you can see there, it's almost a a pinkish kind of brown color, almost like a salmon kind of color rather than a rust color. And what I use for mixing are some used matches. So it's just a used match, and I'm going to stick that in there and give it a good stir. So we'll stir that up. Try to save some of the paint here. And then what you're supposed to do is take the cap, put the cap back on the top here, and then you just shake it for about 30 seconds or so. Okay, so that should be good enough. And just remove the lid again. And now with the dropper here, this dropper is about, I don't know, probably about 2 inches or so in length, 3 inches. So we're going to fill this to about 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way up with this particular color paint. And I actually have on the side here, I have a thing of methylated spirits or denatured alcohols called here in the States, and actually I use that to keep the stuff clean. So when you're done using painting this, if you fill this up with the fluid, it'll actually keep it from the paint sticking inside. So it's about 3/4 of the way. I'll fill that up. In fact, I'm going to give it another little bit. Then we're done with that. So like I said, just stick that in there and let it fill up. So I'm going to put the lid back on this. And I'm going to do the same thing with the matte black. This is number 33. And if I say the number, this is 113 for the rust color. So it's the same deal, just go ahead and open this up. Now this particular cap full of mix will probably do you about 1.5, maybe 2 full lengths of Hornby Flex Track, so you'll get a decent amount out of this. And of course you can always thin it down as well with paint thinner if you want to go that route. I haven't actually done that yet with this mix. It seems to work pretty well without the thinner. I'm going to experiment with the thinner later on. So it's pretty well mixed there. So go and give this one a shake as well. Okay, now with the black, you don't want to use too much of it. You want to use enough just to darken this rust color into a more of a brown. So I usually use about 1/4 of the dropper there. So you just squeeze the dropper before you put it in the paint. Take it up about so, and add the drops. Now with this, it's better to mix it up. So we're going to take a matchstick like this, and we're just going to go ahead and mix this up real good. You see there, it starts to turn into a kind of a darker brown color, and this will look funny initially, but once you put it on the track, it actually looks pretty decent. So it usually takes about a minute or so to to mix this up pretty well. Now this lid will get pretty full, so you just have to be careful when you're bringing it over to wherever the track is that you want to paint. Okay. So finally, we're going to add the more deeper brownish kind of rust color here, and I'll try to find a color that's similar to this for humbrol for the folks that can't get the tester stuff. But if you can't get testers, this is number 1185 rust, and as you can see there, it's more of a deep kind of brown rust color. Take another match real quick and just mix that up. You can sort of see the color. Now actually what I do with these is these actually make good fence posts, so once I've done mixing up the paint for the day, take a couple of these and finish the painting on it and set them aside for fence posts. So what we're going to do, now this is the important part. You gotta make sure you don't use too much of this. If you use too much, you're not going to be able to get the color the way you want it. Just going to clean this out. So just put that in there. And I'm not sure you can see that, but just a couple of drops, like so. And what we'll do is we'll mix that up. Another match. Now this is the hard part because it does take a good bit of mixing for this to actually not look like the rust brown color that was in there. So you just have to bear with it, and you can see there it's starting to turn back into that other color. And you just have to mix it up really well. Obviously, as you can see there from the splatter, you don't want to do this near any kind of locomotives or important equipment that you don't want to get paint on. And so there we go. I'm just going to add a little bit more because it doesn't look quite right. Probably another drop or two. And we do it again. Now these are all enamel paints. You could probably use acrylic as well, but the enamel seems to work better for track weathering. And so the resulting color is kind of this grayish, kind of almost like melted chocolate brown color. And when you look at it, you're going to wonder why on earth we're painting the rails with that color, but when it dries it actually looks really close to the real thing. Alright. So once I've mixed up a new batch, what I usually do is take one of these first radius curves. This is actually an Atlas 15-inch track, but it's about the same as a first radius curve. And what we do is we just do some quick testing just to make sure that the color is what we want to put on the actual layout. And so I'll take this paintbrush that I have here, and we're going to go ahead and dip the paint in and just apply it to some of the track and to the sleepers, like so. Now we're not too worried about being too artistic here about it. We just want to make sure that the actual resulting color is the color we were looking for, as opposed to maybe having too much of the black or not enough of the rust color in there. So we're just going to go and paint some of this. And so if you look at it there, even though it's wet, it's pretty close to the color that we were using. Try to get better. There you go. So if you want to see, this is actually the way it eventually dries out into this kind of brown, chocolate brown kind of color. So we're going to go apply that to the track. So for this, we're just going to show you how to apply the paint. It's a pretty simple process. You just need the cap full of paint. The track, which we weathered, stops here. This track paint sleeper. So we're going to weather a few bits down from here. And so we're just going to take the paintbrush, dip it like so, and just apply it to the rail like this. And you don't have to be too worried about keeping it clean. If you overrun the rail and hit the ground, it's okay. The baseboard here is going to get ballasted later anyway, and this is actually one of the reasons why we are weathering the track before we actually ballast it, so we don't pick up any of the little stones or rocks in the actual the paintbrush, and just makes it easier. And then any mistakes that we make can easily be covered up later. Now what I try to do is not really doing a good job of it here, but I try to just paint the side of the rail. So you can see here, you know, with this type of paintbrush, you're just gonna probably end up getting the whole thing, but it's probably best to try to get the inside, and then you're probably gonna end up hitting it anyway. And so the system that I use is, you saw there, I painted one rail, I painted the sleepers in the middle, and I painted the outside rail. Now I'm just gonna go with the paintbrush and run it along the inside. Alright, this is actually run it along the outside rail here. And what I'm actually doing is I'm actually painting this rail, even though you can't see it. You might be able to see it at different angles, but just for complete sake here, in case I want to reuse it later, I'm just going to go ahead and paint both sides of the rail. And likewise, going to do the same thing on the inside here. It's easier just to run it back and forth like so. And one thing I did learn from doing this a bit last night was that if you hit the chairs here along the inside the sleepers, there's a good chance you've got most of the rail on the inside, and you can just check it out when you've done with the section and repaint it if needed. So you shouldn't have to touch up much with this, and you shouldn't have to mask up any point work if you have electrified points. You just have to be real careful not to paint the inside rail. Otherwise you'll have to take some paint thinner and remove the paint from that section of the point so that they continue to work. And just remember, this paint will act like an insulator, so if you do put it in any location that is supposed to conduct electricity, it's not going to do that. So just move the camera along here. I'll do in our quick section here so you can see it again. So like I said, you take the inside of the rail, that's what you're aiming for here, and I usually do it up to some sort of reference point, so we'll use this screw that's in the baseboard. And then we'll do the other side of the rail, like so. And then I try to hit the outside of the sleepers. Like that. It doesn't have to be perfect, like I said, it's going to be ballasted. And then when you do the inside rail, like I said, you can see there it's touching the chairs as we go down. Just run a second coat over that. and just paint sleepers in between. And if you look at photos, you'll see that after a while the sleepers and the rail itself almost look like to be the same color, especially around the chairs here. So it's not a big deal to do this, and you can always go back over it later and add some variation, because you know all the track's going to be uniform. And that's the other handy thing about mixing up the paint in small batches like this. This is somewhat of a time-consuming task, but the end result's actually pretty nice. So it's worth putting in the effort, especially if you don't have an airbrush. Now, if you do have an airbrush, there's plenty of videos there. There's actually a couple of good ones on Everett Junction's YouTube page. So if you want to see how to weather with an airbrush, he's got some pretty good videos on that. But there we go. So this section of the track looks pretty good. We're gonna go let that dry, and we'll come back later. So here you can see the end result. Right here in the center is the original flex track. As you can see, it's awful shiny, and you got this kind of black color to the sleepers. If you walk over here, you can see the track looks a lot more realistic. You've got this much darker colored rail, and the sleepers actually look pretty realistic as well. As you can see, it actually turned out really well. Now obviously we have to have trains run over this, so we can't actually leave the track that way. As you can see here, the paint's all the way over the top of the rail. So the next process we have to do is actually just remove the top layer of paint here from the top of the rail, so that the locomotives still have something to make contact with. And if you look over here, you can actually see we've already done that for this section. So you can see down here it's still weathered and it looks pretty good, but on the top of the rails we've taken away some of the paint so the train can go over the top of them. And you can see here it's actually where we stopped. I still have to do some work on this particular section. So to clear this off without removing the actual paint from the side of the rails, which is what we want, it's a pretty simple process, and we'll just walk you through it. So to remove the paint from the top layer of the track here, you could use a track eraser like this. The problem if I just run the track eraser over the top, it has a tendency to remove some of the paint over the side, especially if you don't use a new track eraser and there's grooves in it. It'll actually tear away some of the paint that you want to keep. So what we're going to use is our two screwdrivers. We have this smaller screwdriver right down here. It's just a regular small set screwdriver. And I also have a smaller one, which we'll use for scraping away kind of more finer parts of the track, so it's pretty easier for you to see them that way. So we're going to start off with a larger one, and then use this on any sensitive sections. And it's pretty simple to do it. You just start, put your finger on the top part of the thing like so, and then just work your way through it like so. Now don't be too worried about damaging the rail. If you do it lightly enough, you'll just remove the paint. And if you do put a scratch or two in the rail, it actually makes it look a little bit more realistic. And so I normally do it up to one sleeper, usually the one with maybe a track pin or something like that in it. And we'll just do the same thing on the other side. Up to the same point. And it won't look perfect, but then you just take the track eraser like this and just rub it over the top. And as you can see there from the shininess of the rails, it should be good for making contact for the train. So we'll go ahead and test that. When I run the train through here, when the power car gets to this point, it should stop just outside the field of view of the camera, because we haven't finished this. And obviously, with the paint on there, it's not going to conduct electricity. So for this test, we're going to actually use the class 423 VP that we repaired in the previous video. You see here, the power car should get out about there. And if I put it back in reverse, and then just give it a quick nudge, you see it's quite happy to go.